end today, just to let you guys know, we'll go through some of the updates that we have from September. There's lots of cool things happening. Paul is on deck to do a little demo for us, and then I've got everyone's favorite Canadian, Mr. Daniel, here to kind of show us some Rewst stuff. I know last month we had Pizza on, who kind of went rogue and showed all that stuff. Daniel's going to do more of the official, kind of take you through some things, because as you guys probably have seen, Robo Roosty is now live for everyone. So we want to make sure that you guys are using it, but also just giving you some tips and tricks of where to get started. So without further ado, we'll kick things off. I'm going to move you guys over to this screen. I am going to push this button. It took me way too long to work out PowerPoint on 3 screens. So it's still taking me too long. Thought I had this set up. All right. Share screen, this one. There we go. All right, so what we'll do, Daniel's going to do, if you want to kick us off some updates, and then Daniel, what we'll do just to make sure that Paul has time to get through his demo, if we can circle back at the very end for the Robo Roosty demo stuff. Is that okay with you? Oops. All right.
Sure thing, boss.
Okay. Over to you, sir. Are you seeing my screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So sorry, we'll just move on to Marketplace and we'll just do product update at the end. So JP, you're going to kick us off, and then yeah, we'll get rolling.
Okay, cool. All right, for the marketplace this month, we released a new crate. It's a Huntress oriented crate. Basically, what it does adds a link to Huntress tickets that in your PSA that allows you to from the ticket lock down the corresponding account for the alert. We released about 43 bug fixes and enhancements. That's probably a little short because a lot of those are kind of one of our ongoing projects is we're doing a lot of enhancement around the user onboarding and logging, and a lot of those get kind of jammed together. So I think there are like 50 places where there's thereabouts that we're updating logging in the new user onboarding workflow. But for some of the stuff that we were working on, some higher priority than others, we're working on a crate to, like a generic crate to add links to PSA based on type. We have this mechanic in a lot of our crates, including the Huntress one as well, and you see it with some of there are a couple different crates that have that same mechanic. So basically we made it abstract where you could add whatever content you wanted to do that. Still working on per machine password rotation, abstracting that out to work with all PSAs and all RMMs. Working on some BitLocker stuff still. Also, as I mentioned, we're doing a lot of enhancements around new user onboarding. I think on the product slide, we're talking about drop suites, so we're working on some crates for that. Just want to spoil products update. And then we're also working on adding not only some specific individual drop suite crates, we're also enhancing some of our existing crates to include elements of it as well. And then we're adding Secure Cloud into the user onboarding. So that is the the marketplace update.
Thank you, JP. We're going to skip over education. Clea just slacked me, so I'm just going to jump over to events and webinars. So as many of you will be shortly I guess, bombarded in your inboxes with every vendor and every other MSP telling you that October is cybersecurity month. Of course it is. So now everyone has to start paying attention to cybersecurity. We, of course, are following in line with this at the end of the month. We have our own cybersecurity webinar, but we're coming at it from a slightly different angle. We're actually doing a joint webinar with ImiBot and Courser, which is a very, very large MSP that is PE backed over here in North America. And our kind of subject on this webinar is basically that, security isn't a product, it's a discipline. It's about doing the simple things well over and over and over again. So making sure that you have those security policies and baselines set up, and that you're setting up clients for success. And so for anyone who doesn't already know about ImiBot, we have a lot of partners that are using both. And maybe there's actually someone on this call if you want to drop a comment in the chat about it. But essentially, with using Rewst and ImiBot together, yeah, you can get a lot of those processes done, particularly when it comes to user onboarding and setting up clients to be secure, make sure their computers are patched and everything's up to date. So with Courser being a very, very big MSP that's actually using both of these platforms, we have Trey at Courser is actually going to walk us through some of the different processes that he's using and automating in order to make that happen. So I will drop the link to that registration in the chat in just a moment, but October 29th at 2 p.m. Hope to see you there, or sign up and get the recording afterwards. So with that, I'm going to come back to Paul. And Paul has got a little demo for us today. Paul, are you still with us? You there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Perfect. I can hear you. Sorry, I'm just fighting multiple screens at the minute. Bingo, there you are. Cool. Paul, we always like to start these things with just a little bit of an intro. So maybe you could just start with kind of who you are, where you're from, how you got involved in the channel, and ended up focusing more on Rewst and automation.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, my name's Paul. Own an MSP in Kent, southeast UK. We primarily focus on the edu market, so we've got a load of schools. So September was horrific for us, as you might imagine, with everyone coming back after summer, which has meant not quite enough time to spend on automation projects, but such is life. And if my camera freezes, by the way, I'm having very weird problems with my webcam, so I may have frozen in a very weird position. But
adds to the entertainment, Paul. On the note of schools in the UK, are schools using a lot of Google now as well? That's something we're seeing in North America, or is it
wash your mouth out? Unbelievable. No, well, I think there's a lot of Google in primary. There's a lot of Microsoft in secondary. We do a lot of work in the SEN sector as well. It's mainly Microsoft. We don't support any Google schools, not necessarily through choice. It just we haven't acquired any customers that way. But yeah, it's definitely a mix. I think Google, it's the inroads that Google has with the Chromebook is where schools love it, because they're cheap and there's no data to worry about. So yeah, that's a big driver for them, I think. Yeah. So and one of the things I've been doing this for 24 years, but last year started growing the business and employed some people, and obviously employing people great, but you suddenly realize how terrible your documentation is, and it's something none of us like doing. So one of the things that really came to me is kind of this whole knowledge sharing thing. So I've been on a bit of a mission to get our documentation better, but also to surface that documentation for our technicians. This is where this little project kind of came in. It's still a little bit early stage, but it works. It's demo ready, shall we say. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully we can see this.
Yep, we can see your canvas.
Wonderful. So we are Halo, Hoodoo, Rewst, Ninja, ImiBot. So we've got like all the the nice cool stuff that all the cool kids have in their stack. We've had that dilemma about where does documentation sit? Does it sit in Hoodoo? Does it sit in Halo? And Hoodoo is just far superior for documentation. So what we wanted to do was leverage LLMs to help surface knowledge and generate some kind of guidance for technicians. So I went down the route of taking all our Hoodoo knowledge and getting it available to an LLM that we can then use inside Halo. So we, for various reasons, settled on Azure Cosmos DB. This would also work with Azure Table Storage. I think would be a little more native than what we're doing. Cosmos DB has some weird requirements when you're using the REST API, where you have to individually sign each request, cryptographically sign it, and there was some chat in Discord where people were doing that through Rewst, but because of the overhead of having to effectively do a workflow, sub workflow for each individual HTTP request, it was quite expensive from a time perspective. So we're using Azure Cosmos DB, but fronting it with Azure API management. So we make and we're integrating that in Rewst with custom integration. So we this workflow here, we pull all our companies from Hoodoo. We then pull all our articles from Hoodoo. That gets fed into this sub workflow, which is pretty straightforward. All this does a bit of sanitization. So our Hoodoo articles have got things like embedded images, which we didn't want to have to send up to Azure Cosmos. We're doing a little bit of transformation of the payload that comes back from Hoodoo. So we sanitize all our documents, and then we pass them all to this workflow, which sends them to this workflow, which then sends them to another workflow. This is possibly a little too modular, but this is the one that essentially will just take all the variables from our Hoodoo article, post them to Azure API management. Azure API management sends them to Azure Cosmos. So we're now in the point where we've got all of our Hoodoo knowledge base articles in NoSQL database that we can do some fun stuff with. So I'm not going to show the Azure side of things, but I'm quite happy to kind of take after this call, if anyone wants to have a bit more in depth with it, I'm quite happy to share. But we have Azure Cosmos, and then sitting in front of that, we've got Azure AI Search. We've got an index set up in Azure AI Search, which pulls the data from Cosmos, does vectoring on it, creates a semantic index. That is then available for in Azure AI Foundry with the kind of retrieval augmented generation capabilities that the LLMs have got. So we get to our sort of RAG technician helper that actually does the work. So we're currently manually triggering this with a button in Halo, which I'll show you in a second. But we're essentially just triggering this, grabbing our ticket info. We're pulling our ticket details, username, client name. I think we're doing a little bit of just doing some regexes to get rid of carried returns, otherwise it doesn't form valid JSON. And then we send that to OpenAI. Now we've had to, because the native OpenAI integration in Rewst doesn't have any capabilities to do this retrieval augmented generation. We are doing this with the custom authenticated API request. So let's just move that out of the way. We are sending a custom JSON payload, and the key bit that makes all this work is this, which is telling the LLM we want to integrate Azure Search at that endpoint. These are index names. These are our semantic configurations. Authentication, we're using managed identities in Azure, so the OpenAI service has access to the Azure AI search service, so we've not got to mess about with API keys or anything like that. And then we've got a prompt, which is expansive, shall we say. We've worked through a few kind of iterations of this, but we're giving the model some instructions on what we want, steps to take, giving it example of the output we want, giving it some actual worked examples. This is set as the system prompt, the system role in the OpenAI request, and then once we've pulled our ticket data, we send this prompt. So please help with support ticket received from the user at the client. We've even where you've got the client name inside the body of the sort of ticket in Halo, it doesn't always pick it up. So we've been really, really explicit with this. So using Ginger just to pop in the various bits of data from the ticket. And then we get a response back and we post it into Halo. So for this demo, I created a dummy company, Acme Widgets. They've got some information in Hoodoo as well. In fact, they've only got a couple of bits. This is to avoid accidental overshare of information. We've got an overview, really simple overview of their telephone system. And we've got a list of telephone extensions, names, extension numbers, make, models, where they're patched into. And Joe Bloggs, CEO of Acme Widgets, has popped in this ticket saying he's having problems with his phone. So we can hit the Guide Me button. Now this triggers a Halo runbook, which in turn does a webhook trigger on the sort of the main workflow that we've got in Rewst. And we should hopefully, it's the perils of a live demo. There you go, Stuart is currently viewing the ticket. And hopefully, if the cogs of Microsoft are working in a reasonably fast way today, we will get a response. So we've got a nice description of what's going on. It's pulled out the sort of phone that Joe uses, where it's connected into, and gives things like the login URL for the 3CX system and a nice bit of initial troubleshooting steps that someone could take. So obviously this is not necessarily going to give us the answer, but as a first step for a technician who's kind of new to the organization to be able to start supporting a customer, it gives a really nice overview. We're not sure whether we're going to leave this on a button trigger or whether we'll make this run automatically. Both are doable. But yeah, this is kind of, I'd say V0.1 at the moment. We've got a few other bits we want to do to it, but and it's obviously only as good as our documentation. But from a kind of an integrating all sorts of systems together perspective, Rewst has been amazing for doing this. So yeah, that's what we've done.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Paul. Love to see a demo with any Acme company as well. So thanks for taking the time to set that up.
No, you're welcome.
Did anyone have any questions for Paul on that particular workflow? So feel free to come off mute and ask them or drop them in the chat. One thing I was interested in, Paul, that kind of stood out to me was that sub workflow of the sanitizing the information. So that's doing things like you said, it's removing images, it's doing some transforms. I just think that's like for me, he's like a bit of a documentation efficiency nerd. That's something that's pretty cool.
So so I mean, all this is doing is looking at the HTML. So the payload that comes out from Hoodoo is HTML. So we're just doing a regex replace, looking for image tags and stripping them out of the response, because otherwise you end up with a massive payload that's of absolutely no use to a text-based model. So yeah, and I think we'd probably hit limits, token limits, and things like that. So yeah, we're just stripping that out there. There's some weird oddities with some of the responses that Hoodoo that Hoodoo gives us as well. So we were kind of cherry picking the fields we wanted there. There's certainly more we can do with this as well, but we're very much kind of early stages with this. So.
Oh, well, thanks so much for sharing.
No
okay,
worries.
we're gonna flick back over to the Rewst side of things. Clea, we'll kick it over to you for the education update next before moving on to Daniel for our product updates and yeah, kind of Kickstarter. Check out Robo Roosty chat. Oh, there you go. Love it.
Yeah. Thanks, George. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Baby is dealing with whole new morning routines, brushing her teeth, so all sorts of fun stuff. Shout out to fellow parents out there. But here is what is new in Cluck University. We've got a few new courses and updates. The first one, Rewst Crash Course, is, as the name suggests, a crash course on Rewst. Basically, set a timer for 60 minutes, learn just a little bit, and the last lesson guides you towards some next steps based on your interest. So maybe you are already trained, but you want to get other colleagues to learn Rewst along with you. This course is the first one we recommend pointing them to. We added question level feedback to the Jinja in Action course. So if you've gone through quizzes in that course, there is now detailed feedback on why the right answers are right, why the common distractors are wrong, just to deepen your learning. And then the last link that I'll share in the chat is we always shout out folks who get certified, whether that's Rewst Foundations, Clean Automation, or both, in our weekly training pages. So let me go through those one by one. Here is the link to the crash course. You can see it's just a few lessons, 53 minutes overall. It leverages some existing videos from other courses. And yeah, we would love feedback on it. So best way to do that is to rate it. You'll see that there's an option to provide a star rating. 5 is great, 1 is bad, and some comments. Add useful comments, not like this one you see here. Tell us what you like, tell us what's missing. We look at those regularly and will improve the course for all. But basically gives you high-level overview, what Rewst does, how it works, recommend some courses for deeper dives, like if you need to know APIs, go check out Automation Basics. And as mentioned, the last lesson includes a few recommendations based on your focus. So if you want to know generally how to approach automation before even diving into the technical weeds of Rewst, check out process engineering. If you need to get set up in Rewst, take our onboarding courses. They walk you through common integrations, organization variables, all that good stuff. Troubleshooting is another great one. Just shows you how to find out what is happening in Rewst. Is it working or not? And steps you can take to diagnose issues. So yeah, appreciate any registrations for that and any feedback. The next course that I mentioned here, lots of quizzes in the form of knowledge checks. They all have specific feedback. Once you take a quiz, which clearly I have not, but let's just take a test drive together. Oh man, 10 questions, that's too long. 7 questions, 8. Let's speed run it together. This is not how you would take a quiz if you were serious about learning Rewst, but just want to show the proof in the pudding. Show answers. And there should have been question level feedback, so I'm eating my words. I'm going to go back and see if we forgot to hit a button. Yeah, this is how I do Duolingo as well. Last but not least, training updates. You'll see that the latest page here has some shout outs. There are probably some European shout outs in here. And as always, we let you know on a weekly basis what is new, what has been updated. Just let us know if you have any questions. Thanks, George. Back to you.
Thanks, Clea. Yeah, some great new courses in there, guys, like Crash Course in particular. As Clea mentioned, if you've got new staff or staff that are kind of interested in automation, or maybe you're just trying to kind of build that culture of automation, definitely start there. The other thing I'll add, like as Clea mentioned, feedback is super important to us. So please do leave comments, let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see more of. Is there anything missing? And that also goes for our documentation as well. So you can leave comments on documentation, but they are anonymous, so we don't have any way to know who you are whenever you're commenting in GitHub. So if there is something you see in documentation that you feel could be improved or is missing, again, you can leave comments there. But if you want to be known and want us to talk to you and respond to you, you can reach out to Rock in your private Discord channel. You can email us directly. You can DM me on Discord. Yeah, just make sure that you realize that things are anonymous in GitHub and Gitbook. So if you're looking for that interaction, yeah, contact us elsewhere. Alrighty, Daniel, over to you, sir, for a little product update. I know we had a very, very busy September, and it's been a big week at Rewst this week.
We definitely did have a very busy September. I'm going to talk about a few things today. We actually just did our quarter in review as well, and looking at the numbers, we released, I think it was 670 some odd tickets. We fixed 230 some odd bugs. I made sure that none of Craig's bugs were fixed. That was one of my mandates for this quarter. But a few of the highlighted items for this past month are we have 2 integrations, we have a redesign, and then of course we have Rewst that I'm going to go through. So for those who don't know Dropsuite enables automation of cloud backups and disaster recovery. I believe, I don't know if Jareth is here anymore, but I believe we have some crates coming out for that. And we also released Leader, which is a billing and licensing platform. I think Leader is mostly Australian, so I don't know if there's anybody on this call who would be using it, but I believe we also have some crates coming out for this to enable automated licensing in some of our existing crates, and I don't know if we have any new crates, but it'll be added to existing crates. We also did the crate marketplace redesign, the crate page redesign, which you may or may not have noticed if you've been installing any crates, and I will jump right into that. So I'm on the amend mailbox permissions crate. So you'll probably notice that when you click into a crate that you haven't unpacked yet, you're going to be brought to this overview page. The overview page just gives a description of what the crate does. And then you can see here on the right, it has a whole bunch of information that some of it existed, some did not. But you'll notice right now, I don't have a whole bunch of integration, or I don't have an integration installed. And I also don't have the proper organizational variable installed for this. So it does not let me unpack it by default. But what you can do here is you can override this and unpack it if you just wanted to get a look at the crate and what it does. So this is just kind of meant to give a little bit more training wheels where, hey, this crate, you're probably not a good fit for this crate because you're missing one or more of the requirements for it. But it'll still let you unpack if you really want to. And if you actually have the crate installed, this is the page that's going to be defaulted. So you'll jump right to all the workflows and scripts and forms and triggers and all that fun stuff. You'll still have access to both tabs at all times. It's just dependent on the state of the crate, whether you have it unpacked or not is where you're going to land on. So yeah, this is the crate redesign, but this is not the fun thing that I came to talk about mostly today. What I want to talk to everybody about is Rewst. So I'm just going to jump in and do a few live demos here. It's terrifying to do live demos, but hey, whatever, it's Thursday morning for me. So YOLO. Okay, so I jumped onto a workflow here. You can see here, it is part of the user onboarding workflow, the Microsoft user onboarding workflow. And this is just looking at the title, it's an options gen. It checks to see if the user exists. You can see here, yes, it is an option generator workflow. And I'm just going to jump right into Rewst. I'm going to click up here, and Rewst opens. You can open new chats. You have conversation history. You can pop this into a new window, but I'm just going to use this directly on this page for now. So I'm just going to ask it, what does this workflow do? Now, feel free at any time to ask some questions, raise your hand. I can answer to the best of my ability. We have a full set of documentation for Rewst as well on our doc site that can give you a bit more information on how Rewst works, but we can also discuss that if there's questions around the functionality of Rewst, how we implemented it, and all that fun stuff. So you can see here, it gives you an overview of what the workflow does. This workflow is an options gen called, and it gives the name, that determines whether the user exists in various identity providers. And it gives you the input params. It talks about how the workflow works. And then the output, it gives you a summary at the end. This workflow is typically used in user provisioning or management processes where you need to check if a username is already taken before creating a new user account. Yeah, this is one useful item that kind of, at a moment's notice, if you're not quite sure, if you're working in somebody else's workflow, you can figure out what it does and how you can adjust it and that fun stuff. One thing that we didn't actually mean to make this functionality, but it was pretty quickly found out as we were betaing it. In Canada, I know we have a large French-speaking community, so I just happen to be one of them. So I'm just going to ask it the same question, and we'll see what it says here. All right. I've asked it to explain to me this workflow, or explain this workflow to me. And it responded in French. So I know in EU, we have quite a few customers from the Netherlands, as well as other countries, non-English speaking countries, and you can actually use it. We accidentally gave it multilingual support, which is wonderful. Yeah, so you can see here, it actually responded in French. This workflow is an options generator that verifies the existence of a user in different IDPs. Here's its functionality in detail, and then it goes through and gives a very similar response in French. Okay, so with that, you'll notice that this workflow, if I just close this for a quick minute, workflow is pretty simple, but it doesn't have any sort of documentation on it. So I'm just going to make sure it has a new chat here, and I'm just going to ask it to, oh, no, wait, I'm not going to ask it to. I'm just going to go quickly in the notes here, and you can see that there's an auto documentation button directly in your notes. So I'll just click that, and hopefully we'll see it start to generate the workflow documentation. Yeah, so Rewst has access to a variety of items within the context of this page. After this, I'm going to show exactly what sort of context that it has. So you can see it's starting to build these notes in the page. So workflow initialization and IDP detection. So it has that first note, and it added some information, some more detailed information there. Once it completes the IDP detection, it has some user lookup operations here. User existence analysis and response. And it's still working. Should document at minimum the last two steps here. There we go. And then it's error handling and workflow completion. So there you go. Now you have a documented workflow. Previously, we had some functionality for auto documentation, but you would actually have to draw the notes on the canvas yourself, and then it could document it for you. So this is just a bit, it's an enhancement to that functionality. Okay, I'm going to ask it another question here. So I'll just close the notes section here. and I will ask it to, this is another piece of functionality that after beta feedback, we found out this was a useful item of Robo-Roosty that we didn't necessarily highlight in the previous discussions about it. So I'm just going to ask it to a tough word to spell. Okay, so I asked it, how can I improve this workflow and can you find inefficiencies? So once again, it's going to look through the workflow on the page that we're on, and it's going to give me some suggestions for things that are wrong in this workflow or things that could be improved in this workflow. So I'm just catching up on some of the conversation here. See, there's people making fun of me. Yeah.
Listen, whenever you start using the French, you know, it's you're asking.
It's true. Okay, so it's telling me that there's redundant automation log processing. So this is, I guess there's some code duplication. It might be in some of the Jinja here. It's giving me some efficiencies in Jinja. So it tells me the current logic. I can ask it for the new logic or how it would refactor this code. It doesn't like the way I handled my errors, unnecessary no ops. Oh, that's going to be a bit of a controversial topic there. And then the way that we publish results is inconsistent. So yeah, you can see that there's a bunch of different items that it offered. At this point, we don't have the ability to actually update this workflow in Robo-Roosty, but that is some functionality that is coming in Q4. So actually implementing some of these, the way that I would do this is I would get some more information on each piece of functionality one by one. So I would ask it about, okay, well, what would you do to make the automation log more efficient? Ask it, get a response from it, verify that actually makes sense, because we all know AI, sometimes it hallucinates a little bit, and then actually ask it to do make the change one by one, save the workflow, and then you have a version history of improvements to this workflow. Yeah, so can find inefficiencies in your workflow, and it can really help you with improving your build standards. Okay, and I'm going to jump into a different workflow here. So you can see that this is a workflow that we use internally, and it helps us with our Discord support. I'm just going to jump into here. So you can see that this is the first failure, and it says forbidden. The response was missing access. So, I mean, I'm just going to assume here that this has to do with having insufficient access to a Discord channel. So if I pop open Robo-Roosty here, I'm going to open a new chat. Let's ask, why did this work fail? So what it's going to do, it'll take a look and see what page you're on. It can get the workflow execution ID from your URL here. And then it can look up that execution history for this workflow. So it can tell you how many times it's failed or succeeded, if this is a common occurrence. And then it can actually drill down into the context or the task logs of this workflow to see action by action what happened. And sometimes it cannot answer the question. So I'm just going to try this again. Thank you, demo gods. One thing to note, okay, well, that's great. One thing to note here is for our infrastructure, we use AWS Bedrock. So we have AWS stood up in all of our regions. So so you are not using any sort of AI that exists in the US. We have regions stood up for each, for EU, for UK, and for Australia. Okay, well, I'm going to go and look at why this.
Just on that note, Dan, and maybe we can tick a few boxes there, because Leo was asking just around like if there's customer data in the flow, how secure is it? So maybe I know there's a lot of these FAQs that come up, like is Rewst storing my data, like some of the things around security and compliance. Do you mind just kind of sharing some of the FAQs around that you've been getting from partners?
Yeah, so that is a very common question we've been asked, and I think James Rood rightfully put some extra information in there. So part of using AWS Bedrock as opposed to something like Anthropic is it also provides us with some guardrails so we can hide sensitive information from this AI. So things like even usernames, passwords, emails, addresses, phone numbers, tokens, any of that type of stuff is hidden from the AI here. So we have guardrails to protect against sensitive information. We do have some other functionality that we're looking at bringing in, hopefully over the course of the next quarter. One of them would be bring your own key, which allows you to use your own AI if you want with Rewst, where we provided the context. So we are looking at ways of improving that for everybody and making sure that you feel good about using AI within Rewst. But yeah, James linked to a great document that can help with a lot of your security questions. And of course, we have a Discord channel for Rewst where we can answer more of your questions. We are using Canny to get feedback on Rewst or suggestions from on Rewst. So please give us that feedback. You can see here that when it didn't have a response from me, I had the option to upvote, downvote. That's not really security related, but it's another feedback mechanism. Let's see if it can. So you can see it's starting to work, but here we go.
Bingo.
So based on the workflow execution details and task logs, I can see what caused this workflow to fail. Long story short, it tells me the workflow was attempting to create a Discord support ticket, but failed because the Discord bot integration doesn't have necessary permissions to access the proper Discord channel and create threads in that channel. You could ask it, needs to be granted appropriate permissions to Discord server, specifically read access to the channel, permission to create threads, and any other relevant channel server permissions required for ticket creation. So it gives you a solution to that. So you can imagine one day in Rewst, you're building workflows using Rewst. You're running those workflows. They're likely failing the first time around, and then you're using Rewst to assess why the workflow failed and making corrections based on that. Okay, let's just quickly take a look at, just ask it a question about what tools do you have access to, and see what kind of response it comes up with. So I'm just asking it like, hey, what can you do, Rewst? Okay, it has access to workflow management. So it can do all these things with the workflow, workflow execution and monitoring. So it can look at all of your executions and the tasks within it. It can access your integrations, although not things like your API keys. It can just list what integrations you have installed and the actions that are available in there. It can list your organizations and has access to all that information. Our documentation page. So it combs our documentation. We index our documentation page every so often, and it has access to all the docs in there. And then it can also get specific user information or certain user information, not all user information. Maybe I'll quickly jump into a new workflow, and this will be my last thing that I'm going to demo here, and I'm going to just create a workflow. And then I'm going to ask it a question here. Let's see. A new question I use. So I use SuperOpt as my PSA. I need to create a client. What action can I use? And we'll see what it tells me to do. Perfect. I found the action you need to create client in SuperOps. The action is create client v2. So I'm just going to go in here and see if that exists. Create client v2. So it talks a little bit about the required parameters, optional parameters, gives you some ideas for that, and it will create a new client in your SuperOps platform. Yeah, so that is all I have to show today about Rewst. There is other functionality that's available. I believe today we're going to come out with a one-pager that gives you some information on like, hey, what sort of prompts could you use and all that fun stuff. Give some extra ideas for Rewst. But Craig asks, I can't remember when Rewst will start creating and generating tasks itself. That is coming in Q4, likely towards the end of Q4. My hope is end in November, but it could be into December that Rewst will be able to actually generate tasks itself. Yeah, we have a couple more items we're looking at over the course of the quarter. So right now, Rewst is powered by our MCP server that is brand new. So you think of like Rewst as the AI that kind of takes a whole bunch of information and makes sense of it. Our MCP server is kind of the orchestrator of what information it gets. So what information it has access to within Rewst, make sure it doesn't have access to any sort of sensitive information and that type of stuff. And it sends it over to Rewst to make sense of it. But it becomes a lot more powerful when your AI tools can access the MCP server. So what we're looking at doing is creating a way of authenticating with Rewst, specifically with the MCP server, so your tools can actually interact with Rewst as well. So that's one thing that we're building over the course of the next quarter, as well as what Craig mentioned. It will not fix bugs. I specifically told it not to fix any of Craig's bugs. So Rewst is just kind of following the trend of leaving Craig out to dry. Yeah.
So Daniel, this is available for all partners now. I know you and the team have been working super hard on it, like all year. It's finally out there in the wild, which is great. And there's tons of different things that you can do with it. To kind of avoid, like, we want partners to play and experiment with it because it's capable of so many things, but would you have any solid tips to kind of avoid that choice paralysis of like maybe start here or try this, or are you seeing all our MSP partners like it just completely depends on what you're into, what you're interested in?
Yeah, it does depend. So Rewst is meant to make Rewst more approachable for a wider variety of people. So I feel like what we're seeing is the people who have been in Rewst a long time and who are really power users, they're asking Rewst vastly different questions from what newer people who are newer to Rewst are asking it, and that's not surprising at all. But yeah, the way that I've used AI outside of Rewst is pretty much as like a bit of a sounding board. So I'm really, my earliest questions are just around like, hey, what's a good way to approach this? Is one of the first questions that I'll ask when I have a new project or a new a meeting coming up or something like that. So that's the way that I usually will start with Rewst. Like, hey, I'm looking to build this. Can you give me some sort of pointers on how I can build this automation? Good way to start. It will probably it may hallucinate a little bit, may not be perfect, but it will give you that starting point that you can build off of, and you can teach it to within a given chat. You can teach it to think of automation in a better way.
I think it's like you mentioned as well, Daniel, it's a great opportunity now to open Rewst up to people that aren't using it today, or that, you know, maybe aren't as technical, and kind of get them in at the ground level with Rewst and start asking those questions and learning from it, right? And that way you're expanding your team's capabilities.
Yeah, it definitely bridges a gap. Like, even internally at Rewst, we're looking at different ways to use AI to make us more efficient. And one of the things that it's pretty good at is just like taking someone who's maybe a bit less technical and giving them a bit more of a superpower on building even like the code that we put out in the Rewst application. So it helps us build more quickly. So something that used to take 2 weeks might only take 2 days now, because we have code being generated for it. And something that couldn't be done by an individual on the team, or maybe a more junior member of the team, can now be done by that junior member. Now, it is we still have to make sure that we're going through like rigorous review processes and stuff like that, because we don't fully trust exactly what AI spits out, and excuse me. Yeah, it's still something that we're learning on how to work with, and I really think it's shaping the way that software is built, and will shape the way that automation is built. And so we have to kind of adjust how we do things, and it still remains to be seen what exactly the new AI world looks like when it comes to automation and software development. It's kind of cool to be part of it.
Sure. Well, thanks so much, Daniel, for sharing. As Daniel mentioned as well, we do have a brand new Discord channel opened up on the community server around Rewst. So if you haven't checked it out, pop in there, say hi. Lots of people already have got their memes and GIFs going, but more importantly, kind of sharing what they're doing, asking questions. If you're not seeing that, the reason could be two things. Maybe you're still in the Discord and haven't actually verified yet to unlock all the channels, so make sure you do that. But a more common trick is you don't have the show all channels ticked. So make sure that you're using that drop down menu in the top left hand corner. Click that, and about halfway down there's a box that should be ticked that says show all channels. So sometimes if that's unticked, whenever we create new channels, they don't automatically appear for you. So yeah, make sure you're getting access and interacting in that new Rewst channel. That's it for updates today and scheduled demos. We do have a few minutes left if anyone on the call either has a question, concern, comment, anything they wanted to share with the folks live on the call, or maybe a quick demo of something cool they wanted to show folks. Maybe something that you haven't quite finished yet and you want some pointers on. That's what this call is for and part of for our folks over in EMEA. I see Jeff and Lewis sharing some Discord links in the chat. Thank you, boys. Okie dokie. Well, if there is no questions or any other comments, going once, going twice. Okay, we can